Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. I am curious, what makes for a good comic book story? That is the question that I have for you, and I want to ask you down in the comment section to let me know what makes for a good story. There are, of course, reasons why I'm asking this question, and one of them is from time to time I hear people say there are no good comic book stories being written, and that is something I fundamentally disagree with. I think this period in time is no different from any other period in time. There are good stories and there are bad stories being written. That's just the way that it is, and I think people will focus on the negative instead of focusing on the positive. So in this video, we are going to focus on the positive to counter some of that negative. But I've been giving thought to this of what makes for a good comic book story. And I've read a couple of Reddit posts and I've tried to find some articles online that document what makes for a good story. And to be honest with you, I haven't found anything that I found compelling. So I continued to noodle it, and ultimately I jotted down a couple of notes that I think constitute what makes for a good story. And so I want to share that with you to see if it resonates. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there are some things that I missed. Either way, I want to ask you to comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are. But one of the things that I think makes for a good comic book story is a story that is well written. A story that is compelling and also entertaining. A story that pulls me in to the actual story and allows me to forget about everything else that might be happening for that 20, 30 minutes, however long it takes me to get through the issue. But more importantly, a story that prompts me to turn the next page, to figure out what is going to happen, right? That when I get to the end, I am left wondering, when is the next issue coming out? To me, those are signs that I am reading a good story. And potentially my story resonates with me, but might not resonate with you. That's okay. But I still think it comes down to, does it suck you in? Does it give you the escapism that potentially you're looking for? Because comics are both written and visual, I think that a story that is enabled by good artwork makes for a good story, right? I want art that enables the story, that doesn't detract from the story. I dislike it when I'm looking at a book and I'm unable to follow what is actually happening in the artwork because of how it was drawn. I want the words and the dialogue to carry right along with the visual storytelling that is happening. And I want to be able to follow it. I don't want to have to backtrack to figure out, well, what did I miss? Because something's not right between the words and the visuals. It should all come together. And when it does, it is magical. It is magical when the two creators are on the same page and they are telling a beautiful story. To the point of words, I personally do not like stories that are weighed down by lots of words, by paragraphs. I don't want to read a novel. Technically, I do read novels, but when I'm reading a comic, I don't want to read a novel, right? I want there to be good dialogue, and I want there to be prose that advances the story, but too many words to me bogs down the story and slows it down. Give me the visuals, give me some good pacing, give me some good action and dialogue, and that to me is the sweet spot. Another thing that I think makes for a good story is a story that is kind of sort of self-contained in the issue, and you don't need decades of history in order to really understand the significance of what is happening in a given book. So when it's kind of self-contained even if it's over a couple of issues, I'm okay with that. But I want to be able to sit down and I want to read it and I want to appreciate this story for what it is without having to go read, 20, 30 other books or tie-ins in order to understand what the heck is going on. Another huge part of a good story for me is one that leaves a lasting impression. If I can remember a story weeks or even years after I read it, that's a good story. That to me is a good story when I am like, that story was good. And maybe I haven't read it in a couple of years, but I remember it enough to know that it was a good story. So a lasting impression to me is another element of a good story. And another element that comes to mind for me is a story that is unique in some way, that is a twist, that is an interpretation, it is a fresh take on something. It doesn't have to be original from whole cloth, even though that is great too, but just fresh takes and twists on stories or characters, I think is also great. And there are a couple of comics, more than a couple of comics that come to mind that follow this. But one of them is the Venom story by Donny Cates. I was never a Venom fan or Eddie Brock fan, but I read Donny Cates' run on Venom, and I became invested into Eddie Brock, right? Like, I started to see an additional dimension and texture to Eddie Brock that I could actually appreciate, that got me on board with Venom, right? Donny Cates, phenomenal writer. Al Ewing, phenomenal writer. What he did with Immortal Hulk, fantastic. He made Hulk a horror comic, right? He took it back to the original 6 issues of Incredible Hulk. Like, Hulk, for me, for most of my lifetime, was about Hulk smash, super strong, just mindless beast. And Al Ewing did something really fresh with him with Immortal Hulk. It was a beautiful story told over 50 issues that I absolutely loved. Al Ewing's take on All New Venom is also fantastic, right? I love what's happening right now with the Absolute Universe. It is a fresh take, a fresh interpretation of some classic characters. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern. I am loving the Absolute Universe and also All In. I think that what they're doing with Aquaman and him being able to control blood, it only makes sense, right? A fresh take and interpretation on a character that's been around for a very long time. There are so many other stories that I could highlight that I think fit this definition of what makes for a good story that this video would be way too long for. But I will encourage you guys to leave your definitions behind for what makes for a good story. And also, what are some examples of really good stories? I ticked off a couple here, but I definitely want to encourage you all to leave your thoughts behind. With that said, we're going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, I definitely want to encourage you to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment behind, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do it on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
Turn me up in my headphones a little bit, like I want to feel it, I want to hear it. All right, that's it right there. I spoke. When the sun rise, till it's burned out. No place to recharge, so we gotta learn how. Conversations with OGs that got dreams that never worked out. So they become masters of dream analysis. They come in the form of barbers and schizos. Warhead with a big nose with his lip.